This video is going to be a complete guide to sleep. We're going to be going over everything that you need to know in terms of sleep. We'll be going over how to improve and optimize your own sleep, as well as how to stay consistent with it once you've improved it. The video is going to be broken up into 6 categories. First is going to be all to do with the benefits of improving your sleep. Second is going to be to do with common problems that are going to hold you back from improving your sleep and common mistakes to avoid. Third is going to be going over the circadian rhythm. Fourth is going to be how to improve the quality of your own sleep. Fifth is going to be how to improve the quantity of your sleep. And then lastly, sixth will be how to stay consistent with your improved sleep. Just before we get started, my name's Charlie. I'm a bodybuilder, BJJ fighter, level 3 personal trainer. Have over 7 years of experience in the fitness industry and have helped many clients gain muscle, build strength and lose weight. If you're interested in online coaching, just check the link in the description. So we're going to be starting off with the benefits of actually improving your sleep. So one of the main benefits of improving your sleep is that it will directly improve your recovery. So obviously when you're training in the gym and you're working out, you're going to be breaking your muscles down, and your muscles are only going to actually grow when you're sleeping and when you're recovering from that training. So the more time you spend asleep, the more time your muscles will actually have to grow from the training that you've done previously. Second benefit is going to be that improving your sleep will improve your testosterone production. So testosterone has numerous benefits in terms of like health, fitness, as well as overall well-being. So it will help you for your muscle growth. It will help you to have more energy, have more strength, perform better in your workouts. So it has actually been shown that when people go from sleeping inadequately and not getting enough to actually fixing and improving their sleep, that your testosterone production can increase by up to about 25% completely naturally. So it's one of the biggest factors in determining how your testosterone is in its natural range, and it's something that you can improve without doing any sort of performance enhancing drugs. So it's one of the best ways to naturally improve your testosterone production. Next benefit of improving your sleep is that it will directly improve your muscle gain. So previous to it, we've just mentioned sort of tiredness in terms of improving your testosterone and your recovery, but sleeping more will have a positive effect on your muscle growth and will have a very significant increase in the amount of muscle that you gain over a certain amount of time. So it has actually been shown to improve muscle growth up to about 30% compared to if you were sleeping terribly and not getting enough sleep. So if you think about now over maybe like a couple of years of training, if you were to put on 20 pounds not sleeping enough, just by sleeping properly and getting improved sleep and sleeping better on a consistent basis, you could theoretically gain an extra 6 pounds of muscle completely naturally just by fixing your sleep. So if you are interested in gaining muscle and improving that, sleeping better is something that will definitely benefit you. It's also going to be helpful when you're cutting and when you're trying to lose fat. So for a few reasons, when you sleep more, you're generally going to feel like less hungry throughout the day, and your insulin sensitivity is also going to be lowered. Both of them are going to help you with fat loss, and also by sleeping a bit more, it is going to result in you burning more body fat as opposed to burning more muscle. As we mentioned previously, it's very important for muscle recovery. So if you're not sleeping enough and not getting enough sleep, what it will mean is that when you actually go to cut, you're going to lose a lot more muscle compared to fat. Whereas if you were to sleep more, it's going to result in you keeping more muscle and instead burning more fat. So it's beneficial whether you're looking to gain muscle or lose body fat. Also, sleep is going to have a positive effect on your energy throughout the day. So this is obviously going to be beneficial when you're training. It's going to help you to have more energy when you're working out. So it's going to help you to do a little bit more, maybe lift a few more reps. If you're doing like cardio, for example, it will help you to have more energy on that. So it'll help you to go like a little bit further or do it at a higher intensity. Sleep also has benefits for other things as well outside of fitness. So it'll be beneficial like for your health, for your skin as well as improving your mood throughout the day. So it has loads of benefits. It's definitely something that you should focus on and focus on improving. So just a quick recap on those benefits. Going to help you with recovery, muscle growth, fat loss, improving your testosterone. It can help when you're cutting body fat. It's also going to help you to have more energy throughout the day, and it also has lots of other benefits as well. So just before we go into the next part of the video, I'd like to make you aware of a free email campaign. Essentially what it is it's 31 fitness tips across 31 days, but each of these tips are going to help you to massively transform your fitness progress. It's going to help you with literally everything from the training itself, nutrition, supplements, things like this, like the discipline, as well as the willpower, as well as tips for motivation. We'll go over tips for recovery, tips for like goal setting, tips for gaining muscle, tips for gaining strength, as well as loads of other useful advice. Again, that's 100% free, It'll be linked in the description, so make sure to check that out. So, next category is going to be to do with common things that you should avoid before you go to sleep, things that you should avoid like in the evenings, and as well as common problems that will have a negative impact on your sleep. So, firstly, we're going to be starting off with the sleep consistency. So, if you're not sleeping on a consistent basis, it's going to be very hard for your body to get in a natural sleep routine and sort of get in the routine of going to sleep and waking up in a similar time. So, we'll be discussing this a lot more and how this sort of process works when we go into the circadian rhythm part. But just be aware and just make a note of the fact that the more consistent your sleep is, the better it will be. So you'll be able to get into more of a deeper sleep, you'll be able to fall asleep easier, have more energy when you wake up. So where you can, you want to try and have your sleep in a quite like a consistent time frame. Preferably if you can, like within sort of like a half-hour window will be perfect, if not like an hour window. So say you try to go to sleep between like maybe 10:30 and 11 o'clock. Anywhere within that time frame would be perfect. If you go outside of it, it isn't too bad. You want to try and avoid, however, having more than like a half-hour gap. So say from some nights you go to bed at like 10:30, others you go to bed at maybe like 11:30, and that gap is quite big and it will slightly throw off your circadian rhythm. So yeah, where you can, try and get in the habit of sleeping on a more consistent basis, going to bed at a similar sort of time and waking up at a similar sort of time as well. Second is going to be having too many late nights and staying up too late in the evening. So when your body's asleep and when it's going into sleep, it's going to have the deepest sleep at sort of like in the early hours of the morning. So if you're someone that tends to go to bed at that sort of time, it's going to result in you not actually getting into that proper deep sleep. So where you can, you want to try and go to bed a little bit earlier if it's possible, as that will allow you to get into that deeper sleep and help you to improve your sleep and have better quality sleep. Also, it will generally be easier to stay asleep if you are going to bed a little bit earlier, as if you were to go to bed too late, you're going to be waking up at sort of maybe like 10 or 11 a.m. Obviously, throughout that time, people are going to be awake and it's going to be like cars going past, noises going off, birds making noises, dogs barking or whatever. Things like that could wake you up during the night if you're actually sleeping at that time. So try to go to bed a little bit earlier, waking up at sort of more reasonable time if you can. Next mistake, and it's going to negatively affect your sleep, is too much dopamine in the evenings. So the more dopamine that you experience in the evenings, the less your melatonin will be in that sort of evening time while you're trying to go to sleep. We'll be going into more detail into like the molecules that are actually involved within sleep when we go into the next category. But just be aware, melatonin is something that is good for sleep and good for allowing you to go to sleep. So if you're having too much dopamine in the evenings, it's going to reduce that melatonin and therefore reduce the quality of your sleep. So dopamine is going to come from quite a few different sources. It could be maybe like watching something entertaining. It could be like maybe playing a video game or just doing anything that you find too exciting too late in the evening. So where you can, you want to try and avoid doing this. If you are going to do something like play a video game or like maybe watch a fun movie or something like that, try and do it a little bit earlier in the evening so that you don't have too much of a dopamine spike before you're going to sleep. Next is going to be having caffeine too late in the evenings. So caffeine doesn't necessarily give you more energy. What it does is it blocks the things that are going to make you feel tired. So you'll have receptors in your body that are going to bind with adenosine. And what adenosine will do is it will make you feel like more tired. So what caffeine does is it blocks that from happening and therefore just pretty much prevents you from feeling tired. So therefore indirectly causing you to feel more energized and feel more awake. So if you're having caffeine too late in the evenings, that's going to result in more of the adenosine being blocked, therefore making it harder for you to feel tired in the evening. So if you can, try and have caffeine about 8 hours before the time that you're going to go to sleep. So if you're going to go to sleep at 11 p.m, try avoid having caffeine after about 3 p.m. So it's not going to be like a complete black and white. If you have it before or after this time, it's going to be good. It has a half-life of about 5 to 7 hours. So what that essentially means is after that amount of time has passed, half of the caffeine in your system would have been gone, but half of it is still going to remain. So the earlier on that you can have caffeine, the better. So ideally, you'd have it like quite early in the morning, so that your body has time to process it and remove the caffeine from its system, and therefore allowing later on in the day more of the adenosine to be bound to its receptors and actually allowing you to feel more tired in the evening. So if you are having caffeine, the earlier the better. Also, if you are someone that tends to like train in the evenings and you still want like a little boost of energy, what you can try is having a decaf pre-workout. So essentially like a normal pre-workout with all the positive ingredients, but it doesn't have the caffeine in it. So if you are someone that trains later on or in the evenings, that's maybe something that you want to try having. Next sort of bad habit regarding sleep that you should try and avoid if you can is going to be napping too much throughout the day. So what napping will do is if you do it too much, it will sort of throw off your circadian rhythm and therefore will sort of disrupt the times that your body will naturally want to fall asleep and wake up. So if you're someone that wakes up like quite sleep deprived, but then sort of like in the afternoon you nap for a while, that's going to make it harder for you to fall asleep at night and therefore sort of repeating the cycle. So it'll be harder for you to fall asleep, you'll end up going to sleep later, and therefore waking up quite sleep deprived, wanting to have a nap, and just the cycle will repeat, and you'll never really have that good quality, nice deep sleep. So where you can, try and minimize napping, or if you are going to nap, try and keep the naps quite short and keep them a little bit earlier. So you don't really want to be napping for too long or too close to when you actually want to fall asleep. Next is going to be to try and avoid doing anything like exercising, any intense physical activity, or eating too close to when you want to fall asleep. So both of those things are going to raise your heart rate and your body temperature, which can have a negative effect on you when you're actually trying to fall asleep. So we'll go into this more detail later on in the video, but essentially when you're going to sleep, you want your heart rate to be quite low and your body to be quite cool. So if you're exercising or eating too close to when you go to sleep, your sleep is also going to be negatively affected by them. So obviously exercise, as you know, will increase your heart rate and would also raise your body temperature. However, eating too much, especially like a larger meal, is also going to require quite a bit of energy to expend. So there's a thing called the thermic effect, which is essentially the amount of energy required in the process of digesting foods. So for certain foods, it does vary quite a bit. But for carbs, it's going to be generally around like 10%. Fat is going to be quite low. Protein is going to be up to about 30%. So if you imagine you had like a big meal, maybe like 1,500 to 2,000 calories, body's going to spend a few hundred calories actually digesting that meal. Therefore, it's going to be similar to going on like a jog or a bit of like moderate exercise. It is going to raise your heart rate and your body temperature by doing that. So if you are going to eat, try and avoid eating too late to when you actually go to sleep. Try and eat a little bit earlier on in the evenings, preferably about 2 hours before you go to sleep. And then with exercise, try and do it at least 3 hours before you go to sleep, preferably like earlier on in the day. Okay, next we're going to be going over the circadian rhythm, what it is and everything that you need to know within it. So what the circadian rhythm is, I've sort of already mentioned it, but it's essentially the cycle that your body will go to sleep and wake up. And it is the process that's going to regulate when you feel tired and when you feel energized throughout the day. So there are three main things that you need to be aware of within the circadian rhythm. First is going to be adenosine, which we've already covered, but I'll just quickly explain it again. So essentially, adenosine is the thing that makes you feel tired. Second is melatonin. So melatonin is going to be the thing that's actually going to tell your body that it's ready for sleep and help you to go to sleep. So they're similar, but there is a slight difference between them. So if you imagine like after you've done a physical exercise at like high intensity or certain times throughout the day when you feel quite fatigued, that's sort of what adenosine is going to do. It's going to make you feel like quite exhausted and not really have much energy. Whereas melatonin is going to be the thing that's going to actually cause you to want to like go to sleep and actually cause your body to fall to sleep. So they're similar, but they're slightly different. So adenosine is just focused on like how you feel in terms of like energy, whereas melatonin is the thing that's going to directly affect your sleep and what time your body's going to go to sleep. Third is going to be sleep pressure. So essentially what this is how tired your body is and how ready for sleep your body is. So this is going to be something that's going to build up throughout the day. Obviously in the mornings, unless you've been very sleep deprived, you're not going to feel like going back to sleep. Throughout the day, you're going to feel like a little bit more tired, feel a little bit more sleepy like in the afternoon. And then in the evenings before you're going to go to sleep, you're going to be quite sleepy. And that's actually what's going to cause your body to actually fall asleep. So those three things: adenosine, the things that make you feel tired; melatonin, the thing that's going to tell your body that it needs to go to sleep; and then third, the sleep pressure, which is going to build throughout the day and determine what time you actually go to sleep. So we've already gone over how to optimize your adenosine in the evenings. We mentioned having caffeine a little bit earlier on and try and avoid having it too late in the afternoon or in the evening. We're also going to be going over melatonin and how to optimize that. So we did mention previously about how avoiding too much dopamine in the evenings, so avoid doing anything that's too stimulating later on in the day. Melatonin, however, is also affected by a few other things. First is going to be sort of like the blue light and the devices from your screens. So on most screens like phones, TVs, tablets, everything like that, it's going to emit like a blue light from the screen. The more you're exposed to that light, the less your melatonin is going to be sort of in the evenings. So where you can, you want to try and do a few things to avoid this from negatively affecting your sleep. One of the easiest ways is just to put like the night shift or like the blue light filter on your phone to avoid any blue light being emitted from it. So it'll have like sort of a warmer look and it'll be like less stressful on your eyes in the evenings. What you can also try if you want is to have blue light blocking glasses. So these will do a similar sort of thing. They'll block out any blue light which will negatively affect your sleep. So it'll help you to avoid that like in the evenings. And also just limiting your screen time in the evening if you can as well. So maybe try and avoid using any sort of devices about half an hour before you go to sleep. And instead do something that's quite relaxing, quite boring to actually get you into that mood to want to go to sleep. And lastly, melatonin is also going to be negatively affected by either inconsistent sleep or staying up too late. So we did mention previously, trying to get in more consistent sleep and having a more consistent routine will be very beneficial. So that will also help you to improve your melatonin in the evenings and therefore helping you to like feel more tired and go to bed easier. So the less melatonin that you have, the harder it is going to be for you to fall asleep. So you probably feel like some nights you just lay there awake, you could lay awake for like an hour but you just can't fall asleep. And that's likely going to be caused by the melatonin release in the evening not being enough. Whereas if you were to optimize your sleep, getting like a consistent routine, avoid the blue lights, avoid anything too stimulating and avoid caffeine, it will mean it's going to be a lot easier for you to fall asleep. So you can lay down and after about 10 minutes max, you're going to fall asleep. So it'll be a lot better if you do those things and it will be a lot easier for you to actually fall asleep in the evenings. Next category is going to be going over how to improve the quality of your sleep. So we're going to be starting off with how to optimize your room that you sleep in to improve your sleep. So there are three things that you need to consider in terms of like the environment and the room that you sleep in. It's going to need to be quite cool, dark and also quiet. So we'll quickly go over each of those. So the cooler the room is, the lower your body temperature is going to be and the easier it's going to be for you to actually fall asleep. So we mentioned previously that for your body to actually fall asleep, your body temperature does need to drop a little bit. So if you're in a room that's too hot and you're like sweating and you're really hot, it's going to be very hard for you to actually fall asleep. You've probably experienced this before, that if the room is too hot, it is quite hard for you to actually fall asleep and get into a nice deep sleep and have high quality sleep. So if you can, try and have the room a little bit cooler. So maybe like opening the window in the evening, maybe like having a fan on if it's summer to help have more cool air within the room. Trying to make those changes to help the room stay more cool in the evenings so that when you do go to sleep, the room is going to be a lot cooler. Therefore, your body temperature is going to be cooler. And it's going to be easier for you to fall asleep and also have good quality sleep. So next, we mentioned having the room quite dark if you can. So obviously, if you have like too many lights shining in, it's going to be hard for you to actually fall asleep. It's going to be quite distracting and it can wake up a bit throughout the night. So where you can, try and minimize the lights and have the room as dark as possible. So maybe invest in like a good pair of curtains to fully block out the light. Maybe having like other devices and that throughout the room so they're not going off throughout the night, or just turning them off so that no lights are emitting or shining when you're actually trying to go to sleep or when you are asleep. And then if you want, you can always have something over your eyes to block out any light to help you to avoid getting any light into your eyes and help you avoid being distracted when you're trying to go to sleep. And then lastly, we mentioned having the room quite quiet. So maybe if the rooms are already quite cold, you could have like the window shut to help block out any noise. You can maybe even sleep with like little noise blockers in your ears to help further reduce any sort of noise in the evenings. By doing all of those things, you're going to optimize your environment for having good quality sleep. So those three ways are going to be the main ways to actually improve your sleep quality. I'll also be going over a few bonus tips as well to help you further improve your sleep quality. So if you can, you want to try and do things like using the saunas or using anything that's going to heat up your body. As what that's going to cause is that after you leave that sauna or after you leave a really hot place, your body temperature is going to cool, which is going to result in it being lower in the evenings and going to result in you being able to go to sleep and get into high quality sleep easier. So obviously we did mention the lower your body temperature, the easier it is for you to fall asleep. So if you do something like the sauna, your body temperature is going to be quite high, but then your body's going to react by lowering the temperature to the point where in the evening it is going to be quite low and it is going to be easier for you to actually get into good quality sleep in the evening. So if you do want to improve your sleep, maybe try having the saunas like in the afternoon or like in the early evening if that's something that you'd like to try. Also just make sure you're avoiding a few of the things that we mentioned previously, like avoiding exercising about 3 hours before you go to sleep, avoid eating any less than 2 hours before you go to sleep, avoiding things like blue light as well, as they'll have a negative effect on your sleep quality, so make sure you're avoiding those where you can. Now, before we go over the quantity of your sleep and how to improve that, I'm going to quickly explain why you shouldn't be concerned with improving the quality of your sleep and not just the amount that you are asleep. So the better quality sleep you have, the more of a deep sleep you'll be able to get into. And when your body is in that deep sleep, it's going to result in a lot of positive things that are going to have benefits for you. So it's going to result in more growth hormone being produced when you're asleep, which is going to have positive effects on things like your muscle growth. It's also going to help improve your recovery. So even if you're sleeping the same amount, let's say 2 nights you sleep 8 hours, but on the second night you have much higher quality sleep and you get into a good deeper sleep, the recovery and repair that goes on during your sleep is going to be massively improved. So even if you're sleeping the same amount, by optimizing the quality of your sleep, you'll pretty much experience more of the benefits like having better recovery, and also it will result in more muscle protein synthesis occurring when you're asleep. Essentially what that is pretty much the process of which muscles are built. So the more muscle protein synthesis that occurs, the more your muscles will actually grow. So by getting into a deeper sleep, it's going to result in more muscle protein synthesis, and therefore it's going to result in more muscle being built when you're asleep. Okay, next category is going to be to do with improving the quantity of your sleep. So the general recommended advice for sleep is going to be to try and sleep between 7 to 9 hours per night. So this is going to depend on person to person. However, generally you're going to require a little bit more sleep if you're either younger or if you're training. So there's like a general trend in terms of sleep. When you're very young and when you're a teenager, your sleep demand is going to be quite high. As you become like an adult, your sleep demand is going to be like a little bit less. And then the older you get, the less sleep you're actually going to require. However, if you're training, you're probably going to need a little bit more sleep as opposed to if you weren't training, as obviously you have more to recover from if you are going to be training. So you're probably going to need a little bit more sleep. However, one of the main things in terms of your sleep quantity that you need to be aware of is that there is a difference between the time that you're in bed and the time that you're asleep. So if your goal is to sleep for 8 hours each night and you go to bed at 10 o'clock and then you wake up the next day at 6 o'clock, you're not necessarily actually going to be getting 8 hours of sleep, as obviously it's going to take a certain amount of time for you to actually fall asleep. So you could go to bed at 10, but then not actually fall asleep till maybe like 10:30. And then throughout the night, maybe you wake up a couple of times, and then maybe you wake up and you need to go to the toilet or something like that. So all of that combined could take maybe an extra 20 or 30 minutes off as well. So although you went to bed at 10 and woke up at 8, you only actually got 7 hours of sleep. So what you want to try and do is a few things to help you to improve your sleep quantity, which are going to be trying to go to bed a little bit earlier and dedicating more time to sleep, as well as also having a proper night routine to allow you to actually fall asleep easier and therefore improve the amount of time that you actually do spend when you're asleep. So make sure you're doing all the things that we mentioned previously in terms of things to avoid, like in the evenings or too later on in the day, as that will help you to fall asleep earlier when you're actually in bed trying to go to sleep. And then also where you can try and dedicate a bit more time to sleep. So in most cases, that's going to be caused by you going to sleep earlier, as obviously in not all cases you'll be able to wake up earlier. Maybe you've got like work in the morning or you've got something that you need to be and you have to be up by a certain time. You can't really wake up any later. However, you can go to sleep earlier the night before, as this will do the same thing in terms of dedicating more time to actually falling asleep, therefore improving the amount of sleep that you're actually going to be getting each night. What you can also try is having an app called Sleep Cycle. Essentially what this will do is it will track the amount of time that you're actually asleep at night, not just the amount of time you spend in bed. So it's not going to be 100% accurate, but it will give you sort of a better idea of the amount of time that you actually are spending asleep each night, and it's probably going to be less than you actually think. The last factor affecting the sleep quantity is going to be something called sleep debt. So essentially what that is it's debt that you've got from not sleeping enough before. So say on Monday to Friday you sleep for 8 hours and you generally need about 8 hours of sleep each night. That's perfect. But then on the Saturday, maybe you go to bed up really late, maybe you stay out at night or something like that, and you only end up getting maybe like 5.5 hours of sleep. On the Sunday night, you won't really be able to go back to just sleeping the normal 8 hours that you need. What you're actually going to need to do is sleep a little bit more to compensate for the night of reduced sleep before. So if you're going to need to average about 8 hours and you sleep less than that, it's going to result in you needing to sleep more the following night to actually make up for that. So it's not necessarily going to be the exact amount that you underslept by. So say if you slept for 2 hours less, you're not really going to need to sleep for 2 hours more. However, you will need to sleep a little bit more than you were previously, maybe after the next few nights, to help you to actually make up essentially for that night of reduced sleep. And then lastly, we're going to be finishing up the video with everything you need to know in terms of sleep consistency. So we have mentioned quite a few times throughout the video that having good consistent sleep is going to be very beneficial. It's going to help with like that circadian rhythm and your melatonin release. And therefore, it's going to make it easier for you to actually fall asleep in the evenings and help you to get into like a better quality sleep. And it's also going to help you to improve the quantity of your sleep as your body will get in that natural routine. And therefore, find it easier to go to sleep in the evenings, wake up at a similar sort of time. So a few ways that you can go about improving the consistency of your sleep. First is going to be to have like a proper night routine that you do it at the same time each night. So say if you want to go to bed at maybe like 10:30, what you could do is from 10 o'clock, you could have like a little routine that you follow along with and that you do no matter what. So maybe you avoid like eating or drinking or using any sort of screens. Maybe you do like a routine like brushing your teeth, like washing yourself or something like that, getting ready for bed. And you just do something like quite relaxing. You maybe read for about 10 minutes. Essentially just having like a routine that you follow at the same time each night in the evening so that your body can help like wind down, which will help you to go to sleep at a very similar time. Another thing you can do is try and get more sunlight in the morning. So ideally this would be like within the first sort of hour that you wake up. But even if you just get a little bit of sunlight in the morning, it's going to help your body within the process of actually producing that melatonin throughout the day, which is going to mean that when you go to sleep in the evenings, it's going to be a lot easier. You're going to have an easier time falling asleep as well as staying asleep and having good quality sleep in the evenings. So yeah, try and have a bit of sunlight if you can in the morning. Also understand that there's a big difference between getting sunlight through a window and actually being outside and exposed to sunlight. So the difference in this is actually really big. I'll put it above me in the exact difference. I don't remember it off the top of my head. But essentially you're going to get a lot more sunlight by just being outside in the sun as opposed to getting sunlight through like a window or through glass or anything like that. So yeah, by getting that sunlight in the morning, it's going to help with the melatonin release throughout the day and especially in the evenings, and it's going to result in you being really tired, really sleepy, and it's going to help you to fall asleep a lot easier and therefore help you stay consistent with your sleep. Say your goal is to fall asleep at about maybe 10 to 10:30 and then wake up at sort of like 6 o'clock. So if you just try and go to sleep at that time, it's going to be very hard to do that on a consistent basis, especially when you're getting started. So say if your body's used to going to bed at like 12 o'clock and you try and go to bed a little bit earlier, but it's not that easy, you're not really that tired. So you end up going to bed at maybe like 11:45 or 11:40 and you wake up at maybe something like 7:30, and then the next night you try it again and you still can't really get in that consistent routine of going to bed and waking up at the time that you'd like to. What you want to do is just have a fixed alarm for that time and then stick to it no matter what. So say even if you go to bed at like 11:30 and you wake up and you only get like 6 and a bit hours of sleep, what that is going to result in your body in the morning producing more melatonin and producing it more throughout the day. When the evening actually comes, your body is going to be quite tired and you're going to find it easier to actually go to sleep in the desired time. So if you do want to change your sleep schedule, make sure that you're changing the time that you actually wake up and not the time that you go to sleep. As the time that you go to sleep is going to be something that's hard to change by a couple hours, whereas the waking up time is going to be something that you can stick to no matter what, and therefore help you get in that consistent routine. So that is going to conclude the complete guide to sleep. So just a quick recap of what we've gone over. We've gone over all the benefits of improving your sleep, all the problems and mistakes to avoid. We've gone over the circadian rhythm and what that is. We've gone over how to improve the quantity of your sleep, the quality of your sleep, as well as the consistency of your sleep. Also how to make changes like in the evenings or regarding your sleep cycle to help you to optimize your sleep. So hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to subscribe and like. If you'd like to know the top 20 habits for improving your gym progress, just click the video here and then I'll see you in the next video. Bye.